everybody. Welcome back to the Insightful Astrology podcast. It's me, your host, Maria D. Simone. I am super thrilled about today's episode and today's guest because, first of all, who doesn't love Jupiter? Who doesn't love money? Who doesn't love Jupiter going into Taurus and all of the good, yummy things? It's like the most luscious transit, like extra chocolate with chocolate sprinkles on top kind of a transit. And I happen to have an amazing astrologer who I have like fangirled for years and we have so many mutual friends and so many positive things have always been said about this woman. She is fascinating, a tremendous astrologer, and I'm just so honored that she agreed to be my guest to talk about this topic because she happens to be an expert at it. So Rachel Lang is an astrologer out in California, and she and I have actually been astrologers for around the same amount of time, I think, of 20-ish years. And so Rachel, however, is also a psychic medium. She is an accomplished politician, believe it or not. She's also a city councilwoman out in California, and she does full-time, not just astrology work, but she specializes in corporations, business astrology, and as well as personal consultation. So I want to very warmly and gratefully welcome my beautiful guest today, Rachel Lang. Go check out her website, rachelangastrologer.com. And she is also a newly published author. The book is about to be released. It's a children's book, As Above, So Below. So Rachel, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited about you being here, and just thank you.
Thanks so much, Maria. I am so excited about being here too. I was telling you just before we started that our paths have been running parallel. And so I've known about you. I've heard about you from so many of our mutual friends. And so it's just really a delight and an honor to be with you today.
Oh, you too. I feel like I'm hanging out with a girlfriend that I should have known for 15 years by now, but
yeah,
like a pen pal that we just never met.
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we're going to have an awesome talk about Jupiter, Taurus, and money and finance and all that. But first, can you just tell YouTube land and the podcast? Oh, and by the way, for anybody who's here for the first time, thanks for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and to the YouTube channel. And so, Rachel, you have a new book out. Tell us about what's going on in your career.
Yes. So I had an adult book, Modern Day Magic: 8 Simple Rules to Realize Your Power and Shape Your Life, and that came out in 2021. And right after that, I was writing a book. It just sort of came to me one night about like how would I teach, my daughter, how would I teach children how much wonder and awe I feel when I look up at the night sky and how interconnected we are to everything. And, and so the book really came out of wanting to communicate how that feeling, that sense. So it's like a really sweet bedtime story that you'd read to your children, telling them that they can be whoever they want to be and that they're never alone and there's love all around them. And it ties in some astrological ideas too.
So it basically opens up a child to the world of astrology,
Yep.
helps them become curious about it and interested. And it was inspired by your daughter?
Yes. She not to be a downer, but she would be 3 right now, but she or two, she would be 2.5 right now. But she's no longer with us. So the book has extra special meaning for me because I wrote it when I was pregnant with her. And I really just feel like her spirit lives through the words in the book, and she's very much alive in it.
So she channeled that book.
Yeah.
That was so meant to be. That's oh my gosh. Now I'm a little unusual when it comes to death. And some people think I'm morbid. You talk to dead people for a living, and
I do, yes.
have a daughter who's passed on in the physical world. So my sense is that you may have the same relationship to death that I do. And so we grieve. We always grieve when we lose someone we love. I mean, losing a child, there is no deeper cut, no deeper physical loss than that. No one would dispute that. But I I always say, like, when it comes to grief and loss, it really is a doorway, because we don't really lose anything or anyone, because the soul can't die. And one of the things I love about astrology is that it shows that this is your soul and the soul path that you have for this particular physical incarnation, and it can't be destroyed. So I love that you have such a spiritual background and a spiritual compass. And I know your book is going to be a great success. I love that it's inspired with your daughter.
Thank you.
So people can get personal consultations with you, right? You're doing personal consultations right now. They could go to RachelLangAstrologer.com to book a session with you.
Yep.
And I also know that you have a particular specialty in both relationship astrology and financial astrology. So do you want to quickly tell us about that?
Sure. I think the category could be all things Venus.
Yeah.
I am fascinated with the way that financial themes play out in our personal charts, and also with those financial turning points that we hit through transits, progressions, perfections. I love following someone's path, like when I'm working with clients and seeing how can we help them to navigate a path toward accomplishing their financial goals, toward seeing where their money hiccups are, and also to understanding where there's an opportunity to rewrite some of those old programs that we have in our minds about money. We all have them. And so I'm really interested in the psychology of money, because it's very similar to the psychology of love. How we open ourselves to love, to goodness, to bounty is very much related to our Venus and our Jupiter and other chart points too. But specifically, I love looking at where what does our Venus need? What does our Jupiter want to bring us without a lot of effort? And so I love looking at that, and everything is a relationship. The points in our charts relate to one another. We are in relationship with the world, with nature, with all life, with one another. And so I love understanding those threads of connection.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, because basically what you're telling the world is that there really is no scarcity. It's just you and I may get money or abundance in different ways, but we have unique talents and unique special gifts or unique ways of attracting and magnetizing abundance towards us, as well as offering value out into the world that can attract even more abundance. And everybody is unique in that way. So it sounds like you have this ability to just pick that out in a birth chart and help someone cultivate it.
Yeah. I think that's a really beautiful way of synthesizing that information, like synthesizing what I just said. And, the other thing too is, you mentioned I'm a politician. Before I was a politician, I was an activist, and, and so I'm also really interested in the power relationship. So, I have Venus in Scorpio, I have Mars in Scorpio, North Node in Scorpio, got a lot of Scorpio on my chart. And so I'm also
girl.
So with a nice Gemini moon. So I'm also really interested at the role of power in our relationships, and the societal power, our experience of power within socioeconomic dynamics, and then also within interpersonal dynamics. And because when we're talking about the flow of love, and we're talking about the flow of abundance and wealth and money, we're also talking about how free do we feel to be ourselves, to express ourselves, and to value ourselves in the world. And different groups of people have had historically different experiences of privilege and agency and power. And I think astrology is one way that we can look at the self, the individual outside of those contexts, and say, how do you, Maria, or anyone else, how do you fine tune and bring out the very best potentiality in your chart? And then how do we look at that in the larger context of the whole, of societal whole? So that's where I get a little, that's where I get really excited, is understanding all of those intricate ways in which we work with the world and our culture and our societal structures.
Oh, I could, you belong in politics, because I could hear the passion about that and all that. here's something very cool. I love that you brought up the word power. My very first astrology teacher taught me that the Taurus Scorpio axis is the power axis in the astrological birth chart. And it took me a while to understand it, what she meant, because I'm a Taurus, so I'm always thinking of it purely as, all right, Taurus is just physical and we're mastering the physical world and all of that. And so I didn't quite get the connection with the Taurus Scorpio just yet when she first taught me that. And now have come to see that there is such a beauty and a depth in the Taurus Scorpio dichotomy because the correct use of power is Scorpio's specialty, I guess. And Taurus is mastering physical, the physical part of it, the physical power, the physical presence, and leaving a physical legacy out into the world. And then Scorpio's like, okay, great, bitch, you're going to die someday. What are you going to do with all that? And, so it's like this, Taurus, Scorpio, it's just, it always is so fascinating to me. But there's this tremendous power in the second, eighth house of a person's birth chart. If you have planets in Scorpio and Taurus, tremendous power in you, in anybody. I mean, we all have a second and eighth house, regardless of if we have Taurus or Scorpio placements. But it is learning the correct use of your own personal power, not being afraid to come into it, but then vibrating higher and saying, okay, it's not just about wielding power onto somebody or something and onto the world. It's about using that power to do something bigger and what's the word, like to transcend, to basically transcend into something that can be meaningful with that power. And so even though we're going to talk about Jupiter and Taurus and money and physical stuff, it really has a depth to it that I think a lot of people don't think about. So that's why I'm so happy to have this conversation with you, because listen, Taurus is about money. We love our nice things. We love our security. Scorpio loves to have control of the resources and all that, and I get that. But there's something so deep about the word value and about learning how to come into contact with what your value is for yourself and what you have to deliver into the world. And that's what I think the biggest gift of Jupiter going into Taurus is that what gets blown up for all of us now is this growth opportunity to come grounded in our value and then deliver that value out into the world in a huge way. So I hope I'm not babbling, but I want general thoughts. Give me your thoughts about Jupiter.
Yeah, no, I think it's beautiful. I think, you made so many different points that I was like, yes, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. One of the things that, I work with all different clients, and sometimes my clients will say, this is really shallow. This is really not a big deal, but I'm thinking about getting new clothes. And I'm like, are you kidding? That is so important, because everything on the physical level has meaning and spiritual significance. Your desire to buy clothes, I mean, what is clothes? Clothes is first house. Clothes is Venus. It's your personal style. It's about how you express your value, yourself, your unique sense of being in the world. How do you express that to others? And so I think what Taurus really gets is the sacredness of this earthly experience, of everything that is wonderful about being in a body, Yes.
Yeah. And not apologizing for it.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And I think, I think that we could go back and talk about, the Enlightenment period. We could even go back before that and talk about the Scholastic period in the 1100s and Aristotelian, binary framework. We could go way back into ancient times and look at how did we start to separate this idea that the physical body and that the earth weren't sacred, are different and separate than the spiritual, than God, than spirit, than heaven. And I think what Jupiter and Taurus is going to allow us to do for this next year is to bring those two, is to break that binary and to say that, no, my pleasure can be a spiritual practice. My pleasure is sacred. My desire to eat chocolate is a sacred desire. It's a godly desire. It's not a sin or goddessly desire, and I think you used the word blow up, and I love that you used that word, because when I think about Jupiter blows things up. And sometimes it shows us the extremes of whatever potential that sign has. And unfortunately, while Jupiter has been in Aries, we've seen, Jupiter entered Aries and we had a mass shooting, And so, and Aries rules weapons, it rules guns. It's how I think of Aries as being the sign of how we protect what we hold dear and how do we, defend ourselves. And so we've seen a snapshot of not just the blow up, the expansion of, Aries themes of guns, of war, of, Top Gun, what Maverick came out right as Jupiter entered Aries, and it hit the top of the box office. And it's right now Tom Cruise is getting in some kind of an award. I can't remember which one, but we also see the extremes of people rising up and saying, hey, this is not, all these aspects of Aries aren't that good, and let's see what we can do. Let's have gun reform. Let's have rallies. Let's talk about this. And so while Jupiter's in a sign, we get to see the very best and brightest and the very hardest, most challenging aspects of that sign. And so I think for us, in terms of what does this mean for our finances? How should I invest my money? How should I spend my money? I think, you alluded to this and said it so poetically, but I think what we're going to be able to do is to really see, what do I care about? What do I value? Am I spending my money in accordance with my personal values? And if not, then I'm going to go for quality. I'm going to cut back. I'm going to really think about how I experience the way that I participate in society through my spending. I'm going to really reshape that and rethink that so that it reflects who I am at the core.
This is perfect because you're addressing the extremes, both potentials now. So with Jupiter and Taurus, everybody's thinking automatically, oh, it's going to be raining money. Everything's going to be awesome. Well, you're so right in bringing this up, because there can either be an extreme of, let's say, scarcity mindset or poverty, hoarding, like that's shadow Taurus stuff. Like that could go extreme for some people. Or we could have an extreme of the fat cat syndrome. Like, oh, you know what? There's so much, and let me just, more. And then all of a sudden, you're homeless in 3 months because you can't pay your bills. I'm being dramatic, but that's the extreme. So that's the thing to remember about Jupiter, is that Jupiter's function is just to blow up whatever it's already touching in the birth chart or by transit, for better or for worse. And so if you have this natal pattern of, you know what, I'll gamble and take risks and be reckless, and Jupiter's expanding that for you, let's explore that and try to rein it in. If you have the other tendency of, I'm not spending a dime on anything, and all of that, Jupiter's going to blow that up for you. So if Jupiter in Taurus is this opportunity now for us to get in touch with being comfortable with the physical world, living in the physical world, because yes, you're a soul, but we are a soul in an actual physical body now. And that means we are supposed to live in the material world. And Jupiter in Taurus is saying, this is okay. Let's figure out how we can maximize that in a responsible way over the next year. And I think it's really interesting, Rachel, because this Jupiter cycle can become so big and magnificent for some people because of the transits that Jupiter is going to make, or it can become so reckless and ridiculous, depending on how you're going to consciously channel that energy. So I know you probably already know what I'm talking about, the Jupiter Uranus cycle, but talk to me about your thoughts here with that.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. We can, I think let's bookmark the Jupiter Uranus cycle, because whoa, this is going to be so fascinating. I think you're absolutely, I totally align with what you're saying with, how you, I think right now, while we have a few days before Jupiter goes into Taurus, it's a good time, or at the very start of Jupiter in Taurus, I think it's a really good time for all of us to be looking at our relationship with money. Do we hoard? Do we lavishly spend? And how can we bring that into balance? Or understanding, how does that relate to a deeper need? So if you're, going into debt, then think about in what ways you feel inadequate or indebted to others in your life. I think we can even think about the words that we use to describe our money situation, and those reflect back to some psychological or spiritual meaning in our lives.
Yeah.
So money is a big part of this Jupiter and Taurus experience. And for all of us, I think we're going to see big economic shifts and changes, because Pluto is also on that cusp between Capricorn and Aquarius. And this is like a revolutionary transit. And what it's revolutionizing is our banking and finance structures and situations. And we've seen that because when Pluto entered, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead to Pluto, but it's a part of this conversation because Jupiter is going to be making its way into Taurus and in Taurus while Pluto is moving back and forth over that cusp. And Pluto entered Taurus, and we had Occupy Wall Street, and we had the bank bailouts, and too big to fail, and we really saw a big like very clearly the economic disparity that exists in our world. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer, and so that divide became even wider. And now here we are, Pluto's going retrograde back into Capricorn rather, and we're seeing more banks failing because of this economic disparity, because of the extremes, which Pluto loves to show us extremes. And so Jupiter loves to show us extremes too. And I think what's going to happen is, while banking is being reimagined and rebirthed, and while we're moving more into that Aquarian conception of how we understand our place in the world, Jupiter is going to be showing us, where do we fit within that, and how do we experience these larger cultural shifts within our personal lives. And that's one thing I love about Saturn and Jupiter, are the social planets. Mm-hmm. Meaning we have the outer planets, which relate more to Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and if you work with any Plutonian, like any other Plutoids. And then you have the personal planets, which are the moon to Mars. And Jupiter and Saturn show us how we take the universal, big picture, evolutionary consciousness of these outer planets and move it through our belief system, move it through our communities and our our culture and our familial systems. And then how do we personalize that? And so we have like these big personal changes that take place through our interpersonal relationships in our communities and families. And so Jupiter and Taurus is going to be a bridge between the Pluto storyline and whatever's happening in our personal lives.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you brought up Pluto too.
Sorry, I rambled a little bit.
No, you have a Gemini moon. I have a Sagittarius, and I think we're pinging off of each other so beautifully. This is so much fun for me. So, yeah, I just realized we're like opposites. You're a Libra. I have Aries rising. Yeah, we're like just all doing the whole opposite dance, and everybody. I think they're going to see that, which is so fun.
But, that is so
fun. So okay. So let me get my thought here about what you were saying. So now with Pluto, so again, Jupiter and Taurus. Just addressing Jupiter in Taurus, I think that there is, for those of you watching, I do believe there is extraordinary abundance available to you, to me, to all of us. But first, we have to address financial responsibility, and we have to get grounded in that and become really, really responsible, again, about value. And I'm a Taurus sun, so I'm kind of big on this because I feel like that's just a big life lesson for Taurus energy period, is to just make sure that you you develop your own talents and abilities and your self-worth, and then you are always checking yourself to make sure that you're delivering value out into the world. And if you are, guys, if you are delivering value out into the world in some way, and you are checking yourself with that and making sure that you are, your abundance is going to be increased. I really do believe that. If you're not delivering value, and if you are not being responsible about that, Jupiter is going to give you, Jupiter and Taurus is giving you the opportunity now to kind of get grounded in that and evaluate that. And there is a lot of financial abundance when you get financially responsible. And I could give a couple of personal examples. You know, a lot of people don't like talking about money. A lot of people don't like talking about their personal stuff. I'm actually known for that. Maybe that is because of my Sagittarius moon, but whatever. So you guys who have been following my channel, who watch my videos, might have heard me talk about the day that the whole bank situation happened. That same day, I got a letter in the mail from my homeowner's insurance company stating that they were going bankrupt. And so I was laughing because I'm thinking Pluto just went into
Right.
out of Capricorn into Aquarius. So we know as astrologers that ingress, when it goes back into Capricorn and then it'll go back into Aquarius, this is all going to happen again. So this was all just beginning to happen, and I'm reading the letter, and it's saying you have 10 days to secure new insurance. You know, tough luck, basically. We're bankrupt. I was like, oh, great. Okay, so I call my broker thinking this shouldn't be too hard. Well, I live in New York. The company went bankrupt. Everybody in my area who had the company is scrambling for insurance. So this drives prices up. So I was getting quotes that were quadruple what I was paying. And then I started to get annoyed. And so basically I did my research and I settled on it. It doubled the homeowner's insurance. So, okay, you need it. That's life. But it was a reflection of the whole Pluto thing. But that same week, I found out about a financial irresponsibility that I wasn't aware of. And I think this is the Pluto in Aquarius, that whole entrance, and then the precursor to Jupiter getting ready to go into Taurus now is helping me fix this now. So this was also insurance related. This is actually life insurance related. So back when my children were younger, I took out 2 whole life annuity policies. My financial advisor at the time advised me that, of course, it's great to have in case, you drop dead, your kids are taken care of, but also you're self-employed. The annuity part is a nice way to build some side money towards retirement. Okay, great. I'm thinking I'm set for retirement. In my brain, I thought I was going to have a certain number with this, but I had forgotten that I borrowed against these policies twice on the annuity side, first to pay for closing costs and then to refinance during COVID because it was a fabulous rate. I could not do it. So I borrowed twice from these policies to pay for closing costs. What that did was basically eat away the value of the side money. So the death benefit's still there. If I die, it's good. Kids are great, but what I really got it for long term for me was gone. And I found out about this that all in the same week. And so it has had me on this very interesting journey getting ready for Jupiter and Taurus, saying, okay, well, these policies now, all right, I have to be more financially responsible. Now it's really time to think about different retirement options. And one of the most responsible things I could actually do is to cancel these policies because that money is not going where it's supposed to go anymore. And I could be more financially responsible now and put that money towards something else, towards, whatever, paying for helping my daughter with her wedding, which is coming up, and other things. And so it's so interesting how so much money stuff is in the ethers for everybody. But that's just a real life astrology way of, Pluto comes into Aquarius, getting ready to square Jupiter in Taurus, reminding us that, okay, you thought something was really big, but with great power comes great responsibility. Again, if you're responsible with the money in the right way, it's going to kind of bite you in the ass now, and you have to confront it and fix it, because you do have a year-long opportunity to fix this with Jupiter and Taurus. And by the way, Jupiter goes into Taurus May 16th, right? The 16th?
Yep.
And it stays there until May 25th of 2024. I forgot to mention that. And some of the main transits, aside from that quick Pluto square to Jupiter, we are going to get Jupiter making a conjunction to the North Node right around June 2nd, I think it is, of this year, 2023. And then next April, we are getting the gigantic Jupiter-Uranus conjunction at around 21.5 degrees of Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
So think about this now, guys, for yourself. Where can you fix your finances? Where can you fix your relationship with money? How you are delivering value? Do you have a scarcity mindset? Do you there's this show I just binge watched on Netflix. I'm forgetting the name exactly, but I think it's How to Get Rich, or it's this financial guy, this guru, and I just bought his book. And it's not what you think. It's not about getting rich. It is about learning how to your rich life. Thank you. Have you watched it?
I haven't. No, but I just heard an interview. I don't even listen to the Mel Robbins podcast. But the other day I was like, it was recommended to me, like, you might like this. And so I actually heard an interview with that author and with the host of the show. And I really love the way, he talks about the psychology of money. And I really love the way that he looks at that. And is it okay if I kind of lean into a little bit of natal astrology for a second?
Go for it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I love when I think about someone's personal finances, because I think what we're talking about, and I know I just did Gemini moon thing where I'm like, I want to go over here.
People want to know.
But I think, one thing I love is, I'm like a diehard Placidus user, and I use Regiomontanus, and I love Coke as the Coke house system. I should clarify. I love quadrant houses, and I've tried a whole sign. I've tried. It just like never works for me. Not at all. And it doesn't just like work for my chart. When I'm giving readings, I'm like, I don't feel this.
Mm-hmm.
But in the brief period when I was using whole sign or trying to make my way into whole sign, what struck me as, it's like kind of obvious, but it was like really interesting to me, was the relationship between the 2nd, 6th, and 10th houses. These are all, if you're using equal sign or whole sign houses, then these houses are all going to have the same element. And that is your money story right there. Your money story is the relationship between the 2nd, the 6th, and the 10th. The 2nd being how you bring in money, but also how you spend money. The ruler of your 2nd, whatever planet rules the sign on that cusp, that tells you a lot about what are your priorities. Where do you binge? And then the 10th house is not always connected to money. It's how you're known. And so some people make money in their lifetimes in a career that has nothing to do with the legacy that they leave. And, and then the 6th house is, what is the routine that you need to, and what are the health outlets that you need to create the conditions for abundance to flow in your life? What does your day need to look like in order to make a pathway for more wealth? And obviously there are other financial houses, but I think that if you just start with those 3 houses and you just look at those 3 houses, then you can get a real key in to getting unstuck if you're feeling financially burdened, or if you don't have a job and you're like, what should I do? Just go to the 2nd house. Don't even worry about purpose or mission yet. Just get some flow coming in. And the 2nd house can also show us where we can cut back. Like, my 2nd house is ruled by Gemini. I have Mercury in Libra. I spend a lot of money on books and classes and, and Gemini things and Libra things as well. And so whenever I need to make cuts or I need to sort of scale back, those are the things that I'm going to go to, because that's where I want to spend. That's where I have the guilty pleasures, or not even guilty pleasures, but
Yeah. So the 2nd house, to bring you guys back to your birth chart, it's how you make money, what you like to spend money on. Look at the ruler of your second house. Look at any planets that might be in your second house. And in traditional astrology, the second house is connected to your livelihood. So even though the 10th house is career and your reputation, your second house is a rich place to look for money stuff all throughout. And so I'm glad that you're bringing this up now. The relationship between the second, the sixth, and the 10th. These are the main houses. There's more. There's even more. So I'm actually curious if you've ever read or heard of these two books.
Yes.
These are book recommendations. So Lois Rodden,
Uh-huh.
How to Find It with Astrology.
Yeah.
And I love this book. This is like my holy grail book. I don't even know if it's in print. Beverly Flynn.
Oh my gosh, I don't know that one.
Astrology and Money. What's your money? What's your wealth quotient? So I actually love this book. This is a great book just to talk about everything with, you know, the houses and money and all that. But I want to bring up to your point about the second, the sixth, and the 10th house. So there's even more ways to find out about money in your birth chart. And some of us are great at making money through career. Some of us are not. Others of us are really great at we may struggle sometimes with making money through that career, but maybe we're better investors. Maybe we're better at passive income. Maybe we're better with commissions than a steady paycheck. Or maybe we have inherited wealth, or we marry someone with money, or we win the lottery. Now that's rare, but it's money. It's part of it does happen, and it's really fun to look at lottery winners' birth charts and billionaires' birth charts. It's fun because you could see the money and how it shows up. But
I gave a lecture on the topic. I've actually done a lot of research on that topic, and I gave a lecture on that topic for the ESAR conference, the International Society for Astrological Research, last year, and it was really interesting. And actually, Jupiter and Uranus are in an aspect relationship with money points in the chart. Those are two signatures that I found consistently, either by progression or in the natal chart, or being activated through a transit.
Yeah, so that makes perfect sense because the Jupiter-Uranus connection is called the lottery aspect.
Yep.
And I think Carol Rushman's book is the first time I read that. Jupiter-Uranus connections, the lottery aspect, and then things like the 29th degree of Cancer is the millionaire's degree, little nuggets like that. But we're going to I want to extensively talk about the Jupiter-Uranus connection in a few minutes, but just to help people find money in their birth chart. So you want to really investigate your Jupiter and your Venus and the aspects that they make in your chart, because these are the benefic planets. Venus is about attracting wealth and Jupiter is about expanding it. And so relationships, not necessarily between Jupiter and Venus in your birth chart, but what is Venus doing besides that in your birth chart? Is it connecting powerfully to Neptune? Is it connecting powerfully to Pluto? Uranus or the outer planets can really talk about the type of money potential that you've got natally and how to work with it. Pluto, Venus can be big money, big gains, big losses. Venus, Uranus can be sudden wealth, sudden reversals. It could go both ways. Neptune to Venus can actually bring extraordinary wealth, and Beverly Flynn talks about this. Neptune is an underlooked, according to her, planet, and so is the 12th house. And her rationale, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this since you haven't read this book, her rationale is that Venus is money and Venus is love, and Neptune, as I'm sure you've heard, is the higher octave of Venus. So Neptune connects us to the spiritual dimension of money, of the power there. And connecting Neptune in a person's birth chart, she says, particularly Jupiter Neptune aspects can bring extraordinary wealth. That's the millionaire's aspect. Yeah. That can bring extraordinary wealth. But there's the function of Neptune in your birth chart. Investigate it, because it might bring you the ability to have the certainty of being able to create abundance for yourself, to manifest abundance. So those are some additional areas that I like to look at. The eighth house, definitely. The second and the eighth house, for sure.
Yeah.
This is money and how somebody can really get their money or lose their money, so that you could watch for that. So what else do you counsel people to look for?
Yeah, I think you're right. You're absolutely right. The Jupiter, Neptune, and it doesn't have to be a trine or a sextile. In fact, Warren Buffett has a hard aspect, and Elon Musk, it has Neptune, Jupiter. I mean, some of the wealthiest people, you know, if you look at their charts, Neptune and Jupiter are in some kind of relationship in their chart. And so I think you're absolutely right. Neptune can also indicate big losses, times when you don't trust, or deception around money. So I absolutely look at those relationships. Any outer planet in relationship with Jupiter or Venus or the ruler of the second house. Yeah. I mean, I think there's I think there's a relationship with every house. Every house represents a certain person in our lives. And I think there's also a way that every house can tell us something about our money story. How do we talk about money would be the third house. With but looking really at the rulers of our financial houses can give us it can help us really to go in deep and explore ways that we might resist the flow of goodness, or the ways in which we might welcome it. It just tells us, the whole chart tells us about who we are, and who we are is represented in the material experiences of our lives.
I'm glad you brought up that it's contact that matters, and not just, if you have a trine, because that is so true. And so when you're looking at your charts, guys, if you have, I have Venus square Saturn. If you have Venus square Saturn, that doesn't mean that you're going to be broke. Far from it. There are billionaires, millionaires, multimillionaires with that square. The contact and then the relationship of what else Venus is doing matters. So one aspect that might symbolize some hardship or some difficulty, that's one part of the picture. But, Venus square Saturn is one thing, but my Venus is also trine Neptune. My Venus is also opposite Pluto. So there's more. I'm thinking of Oprah Winfrey's chart, and I wish I had thought to put it up, but she's got Venus square Saturn, but she also has a Venus. I know she has a stellium in Aquarius in her second house. So she has Venus, the Sun, and I think it's Mercury.
Yep.
And I believe that's trining Jupiter, right? So this is an example, and I know guys, but so Oprah Winfrey, she was Venus square Saturn. She was born poor. She was born with difficulty and hardship, but her second house of the Sun, Venus, and Mercury in Aquarius, trine her Jupiter and Gemini in the sixth house, I think, right? That was her ticket to wealth, and using her talents and abilities to create extraordinary wealth for herself, even with the Venus square Saturn. So it's contact, it's taking it all into consideration. Are you finding Oprah's chart?
Yep, I am. I'm doing it right now. I've got it up right now.
I was looking at it before because it's in Lois's book or Beverly, one of their books as an example. So it's fresh in my head, and I was like, that's just such a perfect example, because the contact matters. And I'm glad you brought up the part about Neptune too, because Neptune can be amazing faith and manifestation. It can manifest money, but you do also have to be aware of the shadow of Neptune. So, I have Neptune in the eighth house. I have been defrauded. I have lost millions. Through defrauded, secretive, I've had my identity stolen, but I have Jupiter square Neptune, and I have all sorts of other things going on. So I married a multimillionaire. I was born poor, married a multimillionaire, divorced a multimillionaire, was defrauded, got nothing. This is all part of the money karma, the money, what's in the chart. But just because your chart may indicate really big losses or really big hardships with money, that's a cycle. That's a point in time. Your birth chart also symbolizes your ongoing potential with money.
Yeah.
And so I mean, for me personally, I've learned my money lessons are as long as I am working on my talents and abilities, especially the spiritual ones, because spiritual talents is how I'm meant to make money. And I know that contradicts for a lot of people. People think, oh, you shouldn't make money being a spiritual entrepreneur. You're supposed to just help people. You can help people and be filthy rich. There's nothing wrong with that. We're living in a physical world. So going back to Jupiter in Taurus, specific, is there anything you want to wrap up with money in your birth chart in general?
Nope,
Nope.
Okay. No, I think we're good.
let's just, I guess, finish up with this Jupiter and Taurus and what is it really doing? The Jupiter North Node conjunction is quick, just like the Jupiter Pluto square. So I don't think we have to spend too much time on it. But the Jupiter Uranus, you're better at collective mundane astrology than me. And I know that it could become really crazy, but because Jupiter Uranus is the lottery aspect of sudden windfalls, sudden reversals, for better or for worse, and we're getting that exact conjunction in April of 2024, I would say personally look to see if you have anything at the 22nd degree of a fixed sign in particular, to see if that's being triggered. If you've got a planet in Taurus, like my Mercury is there, if you have a planet in Taurus, then you're definitely going to feel this. You have an angle. I just did a session before our podcast. The woman had her midheaven there. And I was like, oh, this is, and it's trining a bunch of Virgo planets in her second house. I said, oh, this is going to be really interesting for you in a positive way.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this Jupiter Uranus conjunction and what people can do?
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's, when Jupiter and Uranus come together, we have the extremes of the extremes.
Mhm.
And so I think what we can do is we can really, look at our money story and our money patterns. And I think your example of discovering, like making those hard choices and really being responsible about how we are spending money, I think is extremely important because, because usually what happens with astrology and astrological cycles is that they balance things out. And so if there is something that isn't working right, then the transit strikes and it's like, we have an awakening of sorts.
Yeah.
And I think also this is the time, so be responsible, make some of those hard choices. And I think that the markets are going to be up and down over the next year, over the next couple of years, up actually until Neptune and Saturn meet up in Aries. That's kind of like a significant turning point for us all culturally. But I think investing along with your values and in line with your values, spending in line with your values, and also really listen to your body. So, Taurus is a bodied sign, and it brings us into a dynamic relationship with how we experience truth, our yes and our no within our body. Mm-hmm. And so I think fine-tuning your own intuition, and also trusting your intuition is another piece of this that's going to be important, just as we get really focused on our material lives.
Yeah, this could be a big sudden growth spurt for a lot of people in various ways, but it's going to end up turning into something physical because it's in Taurus. So you're going to have something to see for it. You're going to be able to sink your teeth into this transit, even though it's a lightning bolt type of an energy. I think we're going to be able to sink our teeth into it, and it should be so interesting. So different. My brain just went back to the last couple of times Jupiter was in Taurus. So I think it was 2000, 2001. Jupiter was also conjunct Saturn in Taurus. That's a very different energy than what we're going to have now with Jupiter conjunct Uranus coming up this year. I think I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be amazing.
Me too.
I think I want to also mention, I want to talk about going back to when you're with Jupiter and Taurus. I remember when I was building my business, somebody taught me this because I am a Venus Saturn person. So I will initially say no to spending money on something because I feel like, oh, it's not a good idea. Like, you can tend to go into the scarcity mindset a little bit more. And I have learned not to be that way. But when you guys are thinking about what to spend your money on and you're aligning it to your values, I want you to also think about delegating how you're spending money. And so here's an example I can give you. Years ago, when I was going through my divorce, I was just building my business. I used to be a kept woman, like totally dependent on my ex-husband, got an allowance, but I chose that. Your soul chooses things and then you pay for it. And there's a cost. You pay a price for all of your choices. That's the Scorpio part. Price you're going to pay. That's what you're going to pay. So the Taurus is, yeah, I want this. Okay. Scorpio says, pay up. So when I was building my business, when I was married, I always had a cleaning lady. I always had somebody to help to clean the house. I was raising my kids. And so I remember struggling with this, saying, oh, I can't possibly afford to have anybody help me clean the house. That would be a waste of money. So somebody who was very smart in business sat me down and said, Maria, break this down. How much money would you pay this person to spend 6 hours physically cleaning your house? Okay, I pay this. In those 6 hours, how much money can you make? And then he made me break it down and he said, you cannot afford to not have a cleaning lady because you have to delegate tasks and maximize your talents, your way of making money so that you can increase that as much as possible. Having a cleaning lady in your case is not a luxury. It is a sound business decision. And once he flipped my brain like that and made me look at things like that in a different way, I said, oh my God, that was life-changing. And so Jupiter and Taurus, all of us might have moments like this in your own way, in your own specific way, in your own reality. And so there's the fine line between wasting money and being, extravagant foolishly versus actually understanding that a financial decision is it's okay to spend money because number one, it's important to you and you value this, what you're spending money on, or because it's actually an investment in yourself and something bigger. So I really recommend that book, that man, because he helps you unapologetically spend money on what you love on while aggressively cutting back on what you don't. And this is another Jupiter and Taurus thing, because we want our abundance, we want our extravagance, but you have to cut back somewhere and you have to confront this and figure it out and be practical and put it all on paper. So with Jupiter going into Taurus, everybody, I hope you think about this and I hope you become proactive about it. And do you have any final words of wisdom about money in the chart of Jupiter and Taurus?
Yeah, I think one final thought about Jupiter and Taurus, I think you're, in addition to looking at our value around how we spend our money, I think we're going to also be looking at our environmental impact of what we buy and what we make. And in particular, the fashion industry, because these are Taurus related industries. I think we're going to be looking at cutting back some of the things that we buy because of reducing consumption, because the earth, Taurus being an earth sign also brings us back into a conscious awareness about what we're doing to the earth. So I think that's another piece of this too that we didn't talk about, but as we're looking at our spending and as we're looking at all of our financial, Jupiter's going to blow up all financial aspects of everything. And I think that that's another thing that's going to come out of this, another good thing that's going to come out of this cycle.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad you're excited. Taurus rising, Taurus sun. We're excited about our Taurus Jupiter transit coming up. So I want to thank you so much for being here, Rachel. You are a wonderful person, an extraordinary astrologer, and everybody go check out Rachel's website, rachelllangastrologer.com. And Rachel, I think maybe you froze. We're having a Mercury retrograde hiccup. So I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast now. I'm so grateful that you were my guest today. And I will see all of you at the next podcast. Take care.